Assalamu alaikum viewers. Today I am going to answer a question regarding Taqleed that was asked on social media. The question says, did Imam Abu Hanifah rahmatullahi ever called himself a Hanafi? Well, someone may say that he wrote the Hanafi Fiqah himself and he was a Mujtahid, that is why he never called himself a Hanafi. What about his students then? The students who are studying Fiqh from Imam and following him, did they ever call themselves Hanafis? Did Imam Abu Hanifah rahmatullahi ever ask them to use Hanafi tag as their identity? Do we have any records where anyone can prove that these students and followers of Imam built a separate masjid and named it as Hanafi Masjid? Did Imam Shafi rahimahullah, Imam Malik rahimahullah and Imam Ahmad bin Hambal rahimahullah or their students ever did this? If not, then why do we separate Ummah with these titles? Why can't this Ummah unite on one platform and stop building separate masjids? Why is it so difficult? We have one Allah, one Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, one Quran. Why the Ummah is not one? Now the answer to this question is that it does not amount to sectarian division if you do Taqleed of any of the four Imams. Following any Imam does not mean you have deviated from the path of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Taqleed is done in the issues of jurisprudence, not in creed. Since ancient times, people have sought guidance from religious scholars on matters related to Islamic law. As most people lack the ability to derive these rulings from original sources, therefore it is necessary for them to consult those who have knowledge of their rulings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to seek guidance from knowledgeable people in His noble saying, so ask the people of remembrance if you do not know. When a mufti is known to be knowledgeable and pious, people trust his rulings without demanding evidence, which is known as Taqleed in technical terms. Taqleed is defined as following the opinion of another without knowing their evidence or requiring proof. In the past, people did not limit themselves to seeking religious rulings from just one scholar. They didn't forbid themselves from seeking guidance from other scholars. However, if they had a special connection or attachment to a scholar from a particular region, they would rely on that scholar's opinion more than others. Due to their close relationship, they would refer to that scholar for most, if not all, of their religious matters. Imam Bukhari narrated a story about how the people of Medina used to seek religious guidance from Ibn Abbas. They asked him if it was permissible for a menstruating woman to leave for her hometown after performing Tawaf Ziyarah without doing Tawaf al-Wida. Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu said that it was allowed, but the people rejected his opinion and preferred the opinion of Zayd bin Sabit. Later, Zayd bin Sabit changed his opinion after hearing a hadith from Safiya as narrated by Muslim from Tawus. Zayd returned to Ibn Abbas admitting that he was wrong, and the people of Medina were satisfied with the ruling that a menstruating woman would leave before performing Tawaf al-Wida. Imam Ahmad bin Hambal narrated from Abu Muslim Khalwani that he once visited a mosque in Damascus where he saw a group of senior companions of the Prophet ﷺ sitting in a circle. Among them was a young man with kohl on his eyes and bright teeth. Whenever they had a disagreement, they would refer to the young man for his opinion, and they would accept the decision. Abu Muslim asked his companion who the young man was, and he told that it was Muaz bin Jabal. In summary, people in the past would seek fatwas from scholars they trusted, and they would prioritize their opinions over others. However, during that time, the mazhabs were not formally established. So some people did not limit themselves to seeking fatwas from a single scholar. They believed it was permissible to seek fatwas from any knowledgeable person who was available to them. There was no concern that people would selectively choose opinions that aligned with their desires, because it was difficult for questioners to know the scholar's opinion before asking them due to the absence of codified mazhabs. After the codification of four mazhabs, books were compiled on them and they became dedicated schools of study. It became imperative that people follow a specific mazhab and not pick and choose opinions from different mazhabs. Each jurist selected opinions based on the strength of their evidence, not on what their heart desired. However, a lay person who cannot compare these opinions based on Sharia evidence might adopt opinions based on their desires rather than on proof. Each mazhab has a specific structure and many rulings are linked to each other. If one ruling is adopted and another linked ruling is omitted, it may lead to a situation of talfiq, which is not valid in any mazhab. It is difficult for a lay person to appreciate these subtleties, which will lead to chaos in the laws of Sharia if the door of selecting opinions was open to them. Therefore, the adoption of a specific mazhab regulates the circumstances of the people in terms of faithfulness to the Sharia and not following haphazard whims. The adaptation of a specific mazhab is not because the followers believe their Imam is an intrinsic authority, but because they trust their knowledge and proof more than the others. Hafiz ibn Taymiyyah explained that it is impermissible to hold contradictory beliefs about a matter, such as believing that a neighbor's preemption is valid when he demands it, but invalid when he is the buyer. This is not acceptable according to the consensus of the Muslims. If someone claims ignorance of the consensus and decides to follow it from the day forward, it would not be accepted because it would create room for people to manipulate religion based on their whims. This would ultimately lead to an unacceptable situation where individuals legalize or illegalize things according to their desires. Imam Nawawi Rahimahullah said, its reason is that if it were permissible to adhere to any mazhab one wished, it would lead to collecting the concessions of the mazhabs in accordance with one's desires and opting between legalization and illegalization, obligation and permission, and this will lead to relinquishing the noose of moral responsibility, as distinguished from early period, because at the time there were no refined mazhabs that encompassed the rulings of all outcomes. Based on this, it is necessary for him to make effort in opting for one mazhab he will adhere to specifically. Shaykh Waliullah Dehlvi Rahimahullah said, note that the people in the 1st and 2nd centuries were not united on Taqleed of one of specified mazhab, and after the 2nd century there appeared amongst them adherents to the mazhabs of specific Mujtahids, and those who did not rely on the mazhab of a specific Mujtahid became few, and this was the obligation of that time. If you say, how is that one thing is not obligatory at one time but obligatory at another time, although the Sharia is one? I say the original obligation is that there are those in the Ummah who are aware of the corollary rulings from their detailed evidences. The people of truth are united on this, and the prelude to an obligation is obligatory. When there are many avenues to that obligation, it is necessary to acquire any avenue from those avenues without particularization. But when one avenue becomes specified, that one avenue itself becomes obligatory. Based on this, it should be that the result is the obligation of taqleed of a specific Imam. He said at another place, indeed, these 4 codified and redefined mazhabs have united the Ummah, or those who are noteworthy from them, on the permissibility of taqleed of them to this day of ours. In this are interests that are not hidden, especially in these days in which aspirations are very shunted and souls are given to desire, and every holder of an opinion is impressed by his own opinion. Although the Mujtahid jurists were widespread in every region of the Muslim regions, it was the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no mazhab would be codified with a total composition in the way the mazhabs of the 4 jurists were codified, and their affiliation to them was mass transmitted, and their pupils who studied them and examined them and drew corollaries from them overflowed. Such a thing did not happen to the other mazhabs. Shaykh Waliullah Dehlvi Rahimahullah said, in sum, adopting the mazhab of the Mujtahid is a secret that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired to the ulama, and He united them upon it, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is why ulama said that it is obligatory for the non-Mujtahid to do taqleed of one of these 4 mazhabs and not do taqleed of a mazhab besides them. Imam Nawawi Rahimahullah said, he does not have the option of adopting the mazhab of any of the Imams of the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala alayhim ajmain, and other than them from the early ones, although they were more learned and of a higher rank than those after them, because they did not devote themselves to codifying knowledge and delineating its principles and its branches, as none of them have refined, codified and approved mazhab. Only those who came after them took up this task from the Imams affiliated with the mazhabs of the Sahaba and the Tabi'in, who began to lay out laws of outcomes before their occurrence, and who set out to elucidate their principles and their branches, like Malik, Abu Hanifah and others. The main goal is to follow the laws of the Sharia that have been derived from the Quran and Sunnah. It is often difficult for a non-expert, that is a non-Mujtahid, to derive these laws by himself due to factors such as difficulty in understanding multiple meanings in the texts and apparent contradictions. Hence, a person relies on the opinion of a trusted Mujtahid or the opinion of a Mujtahid whose mazhab is well known in his region. This is known as adopting a mazhab or following a particular Mujtahid.